When you're first setting up your iPad card, and a lot of this information is going to apply to what you do when it's in the supervised mode too, but you want to click on the prepare mode, which is right up at the top here. When you click on that, you're going to want to put in things like settings like the classroom teacher name, what number you want to start at sequentially. If you want supervision on, which everybody wants, you want to click on supervision, click options, put down the name of your school, phone number, email address, the address of the building, just basic information that will be sent out to all the devices so that way they can be identified and returned if somebody were to steal them. You want to select the option for it to update the operating system. That's Update iOS. That will update the operating system to the most current version, so you don't have to do that individually with all of them. It'll do it when it sends them out to the devices. Your master copy that you made before, you're going to want to select because you want that sent to all the devices. So when they're done, they all look the same. So whichever that first iPad one was that you set up, you want to make sure to have that as your master copy. The last step is creating a profile. A profile is one of the most important things that you're going to want to set up because this will be all of the restrictions. It keeps students from being able to do things on the device that you don't want them to do. This is things like go to websites you don't want them to do, content you don't want them to go to, deleting apps that you don't want them to do, installing apps, movies, TV shows, setting up their own accounts, all of the things that we want to keep controlled because of the school environment. You do through the profile. So when I click on the profile, the first thing is the general section. We're going to put in the name, the organization, which would be the school, just a brief description, and then a consent message. But the most important part is down here. When we create these profiles, we do not want the students to be able to manually delete them. So we need to put down that we want that profile to be removed only with authorization, and then you're going to put in an authorization password. Okay. You can set it to automatically remove a profile after a certain amount of time. For our purposes, we don't want that to happen unless you know for sure that you want to set a certain time interval where the profile is going to be removed from everybody and you are just going to send a new profile to each device, meaning that you know they're not going to be in students' hands. They're not going to randomly open up the device so that way students can make changes to it. That's something where you can set up automatic profile. I haven't set these for automatic profile because I'm trying to set it up in such a way where we can go for long stretches without having to change that profile. So I'm just going to click Save. The other option when I click on Profile, now that I've saved the General section, is I want to put in my restrictions. This is probably the most important section that you're going to be dealing with because this is going to be the spot where you make decisions if you want them to use the camera, if you want them to allow screenshots, if you want them to allow the photo stream. The big issue with allowing photo stream would be that it's going to be if you're setting the same email address to all the iPads, which in most cases we're going to be doing, that means that all of the students' pictures are going to go to one photo stream. You may have an educational use why you want that, and if so, you're going to want to turn that on. But if you don't have a reason that you want to do that, you're better served turning that off because then you don't have to worry about bandwidth being used for sending things to the photo stream. Things like iMessage, AirDrop, all of these things are things you got to decide whether you want them on or off. Siri. Going straight on through the list, you're going to want to turn on and off anything that you think you might not want them to have access to. That's in the functionality section. There's the applications section. This is where you can turn on and off things like YouTube, the iTunes Store. YouTube can be accessed in certain apps on the iPad, which may be something as a classroom teacher you want. On the other hand, depending on the age group that you're working with, you may want that shut off. So you have the option to turn that on and off. The use of the iTunes Store is certainly something you're going to want to shut off because you don't want your kids having access to that during the day to be able to browse through things that maybe you don't want them seeing on the iTunes Store, but also having access to possibly downloading things. I shut that off because then it takes away any option to add or remove apps. That's something that we have to do on the Mac end instead of having to do it on the iPad end. And then obviously you're going to want to allow the use of Safari. That's the web browser. If you didn't know, that's the web browser that's on the iPad. I can't think of a reason why you'd want to turn that off. So you want to make sure to leave that on. When we click on media content, this is if you're going to be putting movies and TV shows on the iPad, you're going to want to set what rating you're going to allow. And that entirely depends on the age group of the students that you're working with. In most cases, if you don't plan on with your iTunes account having access to movies and TV shows on there, you don't really need to worry much about this section because you're not going to be purchasing and putting those things on there from the iTunes store anyway. So this won't mean anything. On the apps section, you have to decide if you want to restrict apps by the age range. Again, if you're handling the apps and you shut off the iTunes store, you're not going to have to worry about this part because you're going to be the only one installing and removing apps, so they won't have access to it anyway. That's why I left this at Allow All Apps, because this is going to be managed by the Mac. It's not going to be managed by the student side. So as an educator, you're going to have the opportunity to decide what apps you want on there and which ones you don't. Whenever you're moving through any of these sections, remember to click Save when you're done. You'll see me click Save when I do each individual part instead of going down to the next section and then doing it. The reason why is things like going through the restrictions, this takes a while because you're going to go through step by step and click on and off each individual one that you want for your classroom. You're not going to want to repeat that process, so remember to click Save right after you did that. It closes the window again, which can be a little bit annoying, but you just double click on the profile and open it up and go on to the next section. The last part that you're going to want to click on is to set up the Wi-Fi. For your building, you're going to want to find the SSID. That's when you normally click on in any device to log on in your building, you're going to see those letters pop up. That's the one that's your Wi-Fi that you would connect to. If you're not sure about this one, send me an email and I'll help you with finding the one for your particular building. You're going to want to plug that in here. You want it to automatically join. The other section is under security type. You are going to want to select WPA/WPA2 personal and then type in your building password and click Save. When you do that, it will send that to your iPads, all of the iPads that you're setting up, so you don't have to configure it for the Wi-Fi in your building. When you go to turn on your iPads for the first time, when it gets to the Wi-Fi section, give it a few seconds and you'll see a check mark by the Wi-Fi. Don't click on it. Don't be impatient and click on it. If you give it a couple seconds, you'll see a little check mark to the left. It will connect to the Wi-Fi automatically. You do not have to do that with the first setup. Then the rest of the time, whenever they go around your building, students should be able to connect automatically with the Wi-Fi, which is really a terrific feature.